watching the News Hour Special Edition.
Welcome back. In less than 48 hours after the Kabul blast, America claims to have avenged the attack by striking a house in Nangarhar, and they claim that they've killed the suspected ISIS Khorasan mastermind of the blast. In the pictures that have emerged after that, you can see a damaged house and this damaged auto rickshaw. The question is, by merely striking a small splinter group of the ISIS and by supporting the Taliban's terror, how is the US helping in fighting terror? Isn't this too little, too late? That's our debate. Let me open this up quickly. RSN Singh, Strategic Affairs Expert; Major General Dhruv Katoch, Director of the India Foundation; Maruf Raza, Group Consulting Editor, Times Network; Lieutenant General Gurmeet Singh, former Deputy Chief of Army Staff. Good evening, gentlemen. Colonel RSN, I'm coming to you, but Maruf, I want you to set it up. Here is another great American eyewash the world is falling for. That look, we've avenged it. We've bombed this. We've killed the mastermind of the attacks.
See, Pranesh, there are 4 points I wish to make. Killing of masterminds does not kill an ideology. As you saw in the case of elimination of Bin Laden and Al-Qaeda, Al-Qaeda is known to be operating again from Afghanistan and has been active in parts of the Gulf Peninsula and Africa. The second is the fact that the US went into Afghanistan after 9/11 and fought a 2-year war over a 10 times over, and claimed that it was a global war on terror. It was America's war on terror, and whoever it got in, it arm twisted them into a coalition of willing. All along, the Americans continued to go along with Pakistan's lies and Pakistan's assertions that they were supporting America while they were stabbing America on its back. And likewise now, the Americans have been reluctant to hit at the Taliban and Pakistan, which are actually behind the entire confusion and mayhem that has followed America's departure in Afghanistan, because America wants to extricate its people completely from Afghanistan before engaging with the region with over-the-horizon operations, as they call it, which could be drone attacks or air attacks. They are obviously reluctant to put feet on the ground again after what they've suffered. And the last and most important point is that while they have targeted ISIS Khorasan province, the message that goes out is the fact that only they are fighting against American interests. So for the ISIS-K, it could be a victory of sorts.
Right.
Because they have claimed already that they were the ones that pushed the Americans out, and they can say we are continuing to be in an endless war with America, whereas Taliban has sold its souls over a peace deal. But the point to understand, and that's my last point, is that the hit took place near Kandahar on the eastern side of Afghanistan, close to the Pakistan border. So you cannot rule out the fact that, like the Taliban, the ISIS-K also has feet on both sides of the Durand line, one in Pakistan, one in Afghanistan, and hence the complicity of Pakistan in showing America in bad light, even when the Americans have been accommodative to Pakistan's strategic interests.
What policy is this, RSN Singh, of striking a house, claiming to have killed the mastermind, but leaving all the American weapons for the Taliban to unleash?
I think the deep state of the United States of America is in deep conspiracy with the jihadi elements, and that this was very, very evident when the Taliban announced 31st as a deadline, and Biden, I mean, he just followed suit. He found it too sanctimonious. So I think a superpower could have easily said that we will be there as long as it takes us to evacuate all our people, safely. But he just stuck to the deep conspiracy is very much evident, and I've heard of Faruqi. Faruqi is the man of the Islamic State. He was captured by the Afghan security forces. He was in jail, and Pakistan ensured that he's never interrogated. He was also the man, Aslam Faruqi I'm talking about, who in March 2020 had carried out these attacks, was responsible for these attacks on Gurudwara where 26 people were killed. So I don't want to go to, you have very little time on this program, but I can tell you with certainty that the Pakistan military intelligence establishment is in cahoots with the Islamic State. So many people, panelists on your program yesterday and today, they have covered that the linkages between the Islamic State and Haqqani group. I also told you the objective about these bombing attacks that have taken place in Kabul.
Right.
So there is a deep conspiracy, and when you talk of the United States, it is not more than the deep state. It is the military-industrial complex about which President Johnson had said that it will consume America. So all that, and yes, what Maroof sir has said, I totally agree. Over the horizon operations, and I also believe that with the technology, the best policy is not to hammer these guys, because splinters will be everywhere. Jihadi splinters will be in India as well. So let these fellows rot. Let these fellows rot, and that cut them off, contain them. Isolate them and let them rot. That is the only solution today, and technology permits you to do that.
Right. Lieutenant General Gurmeet Singh, what do you make of this stand that the US has taken, sir? And before you answer, I just want to read out quickly what the Taliban spokesperson has said. Now, this is according to the Washington Post. Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid has told in an interview that when Osama bin Laden became an issue for the Americans, he was in Afghanistan, although there was no proof that he was involved in 9/11. And the Americans are allowing this kind of propaganda to go on unchallenged because it suits their interest, like Maroof said.
Absolutely, Pranesh. I would say what has been told is exactly the scene on the ground. I think what we are seeing is a pretense. What we are seeing is a duplicity. What we are seeing is a falsehood. In fact, to be very honest, what is expected of a superpower? When they are evacuating from there, there is intelligence that there will be a suicide attack, and they do nothing about it. After it has happened that they have lost 13 of their soldiers and 18 injured, and then they just go in for the planner. Is that about all? At their level, they must go for the center of gravity. Why have they stopped short of their links with the Pakistan or from where it's emanated? At least they should be able to address the problem in the bigger scale of it. They are the one who are into, I will say, mass strategy, macro level, global. But here you find that there is a pure duplicity in the entire perspective. In fact, I would say they have become, they have fallen prey to the lie, proxy, and deniability of Pakistan in totality. They were there for 20 years in Afghanistan, and they never understood one thing, that where the whole problem is seated. They could never know that the center of gravity of the terrorism, where the world is going to face the brunt of it hereafter, of terrorism and radicalization, was seated in Pakistan. They left the problem unsolved for the nation. For 20 years they were there. They used all their might, and look at it. They are living out from there, and $85 billion worth of equipment they're leaving behind. Is this the orderly way of moving out from there? For whom are they leaving this problem? Why this exit where the after effect of the shortage is it expected from a superpower? Is it expected from somebody who's going to take care for the credibility and dependability of the whole world on these things? And in fact, to be honest, They talk about the geostrategy, but they've failed on intelligence, understanding, and awareness. In fact, in front of them, such a speedy Taliban offensive, China, Pakistan, 13 terrorist organizations became part of it. And just sheer 11 days, the entire thing collapsed. In fact, it looks that there was a definitely embedded duplicity in the entire thing. Otherwise, how can elected government can be, and the entire nation, in fact, what fate they have left behind for the Afghani people?
Let me bring in Major General Katoch. Sir, as someone who's, written and talked about extensively on this issue, on the situation in Afghanistan, what do you make of what the US has done? First abandoned Afghanistan and now is not even trying to secure the people.
Thank you, Pranesh. I've heard the views which have been expressed, and I agree with all the three panelists who are, besides others, they're very close friends, and I follow their writings. Now, let me give my view. I think here what has happened is that firstly, of course, the whole world knows America has lost credibility. There is no doubts about that. And the reason we have to ask, why have they gone on this path? You see, the question which has been put up earlier, they knew that the center of gravity lies in Pakistan, and yet they did nothing about it. Now, post the withdrawal, that was the time to have done something about it. They still refuse to do so. Now, I am not one of those who say that the Americans didn't know. I have spoken to a large number of the diplomats and the military personnel, and every single one of them knew. So the question is, why are they still following this path? Now, I'm getting down to a slightly different view now. I think the Americans may be having another deal in the making, and that deal perhaps is to keep the area destabilized. You see, they are looking at the Americans getting out and the Afghan area destabilized. Now, when you keep this area destabilized, then the countries which get affected are the Central Asian republics, which will have a direct impact on Russia, and China, which suits the American interest. Now, to what extent is America prepared to go to do something like this remains a mystery to me, because they are really cutting their nose to spite their face. It doesn't work that way, because this same terror will consume them also. One point about the ideology which has been spoken of. Let us face one thing very straight: the Afghan-Taliban, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, the TTP, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, the Islamic State Khorasan, the Islamic State, and when we are talking of Al-Qaeda, all of them have got the same ideology. There is no change in the ideology. So unless we understand that, you may fight amongst yourselves as to who's going to be the boss after we win the last war on earth. But the question is, the ideology is the same. And the ideology is to create an Islamic State, firstly within the region and then across the world. Now, that has been well known, well established, which is why Khorasan comes in. That is the theological start point. So what game is America playing now? I think they're playing a very dangerous game. Whether it is the military-industrial complex, which is forcing President Biden to do it, well, time will tell. But whichever way it goes, I think the situation is going to get from bad to worse. I have made a point earlier in many of my programs. The Afghan-Taliban has won the battle, but the war has just started.
Right, and I read that piece, Afghan war has just begun, that you'd written last week, in which you also say the West and the US are concerned about what the situation is in Afghanistan, but their actions does not match that. I thank all of you gentlemen for joining us. Major General Katoch, Lieutenant General Gurmeet Singh, Maruf Raza, RSN Singh for joining us and putting this story in perspective for our viewers.